I never would have thought that an object as mundane as a chair could cause so much terror in a person's life. Superstition often speaks of cursed items, but I always found the concept to be laughable. However, the events that transpired the week of October 2nd, 2016 are something that will sit in the pit of my stomach until the day I die. My fiance and I had just signed the lease on our first home, a modest one-bedroom apartment in an old building. There was nothing particularly amazing about the place, but it was ours, and that alone was enough to fill us with excitement. With my management position at the local diner and Alice part-time waitressing in between college classes, going out and buying brand new furniture was not an option. Luckily, Alice loved thrift shopping and typically knew where to get the best deals. She led me by the hand through the aisles of clothes at the Good Finds thrift store near our new place. Against the far back walls sat a myriad of mismatched furniture, worn wooden tables, couches with ripped cushions, dressers with half the drawers missing. I scrunched up my face at the smell of the dust and the thought of picking up someone's used dirty furniture. Still, we were gonna need more than just the futon we currently had. "Seth!" I heard Alice yell from the other side of the furniture section. I headed toward the sound of her voice and found her standing in front of a large armchair she pointed towards it. "Look how nice this is." It was made of a deep blood red leather with delicate accents of black running along the edges. The back cushion was studded with a crisscross pattern of polished gold buttons. The buttons curved down the front of each arm as well. It sat upon 4 square legs made of a dark cherry wood. It was beautiful, but had a sense of darkness to it. I chalked that up to the color of its leather and vintage style. Most importantly, it was in perfect condition. Didn't even look like it had ever been sat on. Alice bent down and peered at the yellowed paper price tag. $20 was written in black marker. She glanced up at me with big eyes. The chairs seemed to have some sort of pull on both of us. We knew we had to buy it. After some finagling, we had it in our car and on its way home. Carrying it upstairs to our 4th-floor apartment was not as easy as we had hoped. "This thing must be really well made," I grunted, trying to hold its weight as we rounded the 3rd staircase. "It's so fucking heavy. I can't believe how cheap it was." Alice was equally out of breath as she held the top of it, walking backwards up the final staircase. We put it in the corner of our living room, facing the television. It looked like it was meant to be there. The next few days went on without incident. We continued to unpack and decorate on our free nights after work. We explored our new neighborhood when we had the energy to go out. Caught up in the novelty of our new place, the chair went mostly unnoticed. It wasn't until the next Friday night that I was given the first sign that something was wrong. Alice and I had settled in for the night, a bowl of popcorn in hand, and ready to pop in a movie. One of those classic black and white horror films she loved so much. I plopped down into the chair and immediately sprang back up. "What's wrong?" Alice asked. 2 things had happened the moment I had sat down. First, the air around me grew incredibly cold, as if the room had fallen to a frigid temperature in mere moments. Second, the skin on my arms where the chair had touched burned like they had been pressed against hot metal. I dropped the popcorn to the ground without thought and began examining my arms where they had been burned. But there was nothing there, not even the slightest bit of redness. "The fuck?" I mumbled. Alice came over to me, gently putting her hands on my arms and looking me over. "Did you hurt yourself?" "I don't know." I sat down and felt like something burned me. She paused, not exactly sure how to respond. "Well, I don't see anything on your skin. The chair is in front of the window. Maybe the sun was beating down on the leather today?" "Yeah, maybe." although I didn't believe that was the case. The sun had set hours ago. There was no way it should have retained that much heat. Let me see. Alice hesitantly lowered herself down into the chair, lightly touching her fingertips to the leather. I don't feel anything. I put my hand to the cushion and felt nothing. No cold air, no burning sensation. It was just a chair. I shrugged and assured her I must have had a weird hot flash or something. I cleaned up the spilled popcorn and changed the subject to turning on the movie. Alice still seemed uneasy by what had happened, but was happy to not dwell on it. We watched the movie in silence, both opting to sit on the futon. It wasn't more than a day or two after that when I noticed the chair begin to move. It was subtle at first, seeming to be at a slightly different angle than it was the last time I had been in the room, or a few inches forward or back from the last time I had looked at it. I told myself I was just imagining things, that my paranoia was getting the best of me. But when I woke up one morning to find that the chair had moved from the corner and now sat at the dead center of the room, I could no longer play it off as my imagination. "Alice," I called. "What?" She yelled back from the bedroom. Seemingly annoyed at the wake-up call, she groggily stumbled out into the living room. Her eyes widened. "Did you move this?" I asked. She furrowed her brow and shook her head. "No." "You didn't?" "No." We both stood, unmoving and silent, just staring at it. Alice's breathing grew deep and uneven. "Did someone, break into our apartment in the middle of the night?" I looked around the room. I don't think so. Literally nothing else looks touched. If someone had come in, they'd have robbed us. Nobody's gonna break into an apartment and just move a piece of furniture. I searched the apartment top to bottom, ensuring there were no unwanted visitors lurking anywhere. There was not a single sign that anyone had been there. I came back into the living room where Alice still stood, too confused to do anything. My eyes shifted from her to the chair, still sitting feet away from where I'd been the night before. I had never considered myself a superstitious person. However, I had seen enough horror movies. I knew the trope of the oblivious couple given 1,000 red flags that something wrong was happening, but never doing anything about it until it was too late. "Yeah, we're getting rid of this thing." Alice nodded without a word. We agreed to get out of the apartment and to the dumpster that evening, as neither of us had time to carry down the steps before work. Given that we were already living from paycheck to paycheck, we couldn't afford to be late. That night, I finished my shift and went to pick up Alice from her job, as we always did. We didn't say much on the drive home. I think we were both eager to just get there and get rid of the chair. As we climbed the stairs to our apartment, I groaned, thinking of having to carry that heavy thing all the way back out. Once we reached our door and I slid my key into the lock, that we heard it, a high-pitched, blood-curdling scream coming from inside our home. It sounded like a child. I swung the door open as quickly as I could and rushed through the hallway into the living room, Alice quickly following behind me. The screaming stopped upon us running in. There was the chair, tipped over on its side. Again, not a single other thing was out of place, no sign that anyone had been there. I stormed through every room. "What the fuck is in here?" I screamed. I checked every closet, every dark corner, every single fucking inch of that house, but found nothing. I came back to the front door. Alice stood out in the hallway, too afraid to come inside. "Alright, we're getting this fucking thing out of here now." I grabbed her by the hand and let her in. Without another word, we picked it up and began our descent to the dumpster. Spent the whole trip down grasping the chair until my knuckles turned white, scared that it would somehow slip out of my hands and go plummeting down the stairs, taking one or both of us with it. I think Alice was scared of the same thing. We managed to get it outside, both of us throwing the thing on the gravel next to the dumpster and let out a sigh of relief. It was then that I made the discovery which still haunts me. I noticed a lump in the bottom cushion that I had somehow not seen before. Desperate to find out if something was actually going on with this, or if we were both simply going insane, I took my pocket knife from my keychain and began to slice the leather cushion open. Shoved within the stuffing, I found the source of the lump. I pulled out a small white silk bag tied with a drawstring. I looked at Alice, who was visibly terrified. My hands were shaking. I didn't want to open it up, but I could feel that something was inside. I pulled the drawstring apart and peered through the opening, immediately dropping the bag onto the ground, the contents spilling out. Alice gasped. There was hair, several different colors, clearly from several different people. There were teeth. There were beaded bracelets and plastic rings made to fit tiny wrists and tiny fingers. There were the bones of the hands that once wore them. We called the police before even saying a word to each other. The cops came in. They took the evidence, chair and all. We got a call from a detective the following week. The objects found were at least a decade old. The teeth were from 8 different children, all between the ages of 5 and 7. They tested the victim's DNA, but none of it came up as a match in their system. They took the whole damn chair apart, searching for any evidence they could find from the attacker. But there were hundreds of fingerprints on it. Mine, Alice's, a few workers from the thrift store that it had been dropped off at, and any thrift shopper who had touched it. The police investigated what they could, reached out to the thrift store employees to see if anyone remembered who brought the chair there, questioned any of the shoppers they could identify through the fingerprints. All in all, they came up with nothing. Nothing else strange happened in our apartment after that, but the presence of the chair still hung in the air. We moved out after our lease was up. I think the children that were killed were trying to tell someone, trying to get someone to find what was hidden in that chair. It hurts to know that the victims couldn't be identified. No closure to weeping parents, no honoring the dead with a picture or a name. But the thing that eats away at me most is that the murderer could still be alive, still taking children from their homes. He might never be caught.